everybody, welcome to the newest episode of The Bearded Gamer Show. Now, as always, I'm your host, The Bearded Gamer, Chris Arnone. I know I need to shave right now, getting a little shaggy around the edges, but, you know, still a beard-tastic. How about we talk comic books right now with the pull list? So once again, it's time for my recommendations for new comic books coming out this week. Now, Wednesday is always New Comic Book Day. I always recommend to you, go to your local comic book store, meet your local comic book guru, and get some other great recommendations. Find out what they've got, go through some of the back issues, and find some great new stuff to read. As for new stuff coming out this week, here's some recommendations. First up is Batman number 8. Now, this new kind of owl guy has kicked Batman's ass, cleaned his clock, and he's going and heading back to Wayne Manor to retreat. But this is just the beginning of this fight. It's sort of the first battle in what is definitely going to be a war. As this owl guy, he's going to start, attacking the heart of the city. And DC is even saying this is sort of the beginning of what's leading up into this Night of the Owl storyline that they've got going. And they say it's going to, change things forever. We'll see how that goes. It's comic books. Nothing really changes forever that much. But it does happen on occasion. So, it's been a good story and some great writing, so definitely go check that one out, especially if you're a Batman fan. I mean, who isn't a Batman fan? All right, next recommendation is Reset number 1. It's Groundhog Day meets Lawnmower Man. Go. Okay, really. This is actually a really kind of cool premise. It's about this washed-up actor who gets this chance to relive and redo any moment in his life through this virtual reality machine. Now, it sounds just really weird and bonkers, but the way it's done with the art and the storytelling, it's weird, imaginative, quirky, very different, and very, very good. I highly recommend Reset number 1. And of course, it's a number 1, perfect time to, jump on in. Next is Resident Alien number 0. And of course, 0 issues are always sort of a prequel. They're a lead up. There's usually some, extra artwork and whatnot in it. But this is about this alien who crash lands, and then he decides he's going to blend in with this town. He's got some empathy powers, and he can mask his appearance. And so he's been posing as a semi-retired doctor in this little small town of Patience. Yeah. But of course, this sounds like a perfect setup for everything to go horribly wrong, which of course it's kind of going to. And all these bad things start to happen. It makes it to where he has to start revealing his identity. And not only the fallout of, this crazy alien who has these powers, but also this alien who has settled into this community and then shocks them when they realize he's not who they thought that he was. So it looks pretty cool. I would definitely recommend checking that out. Resident Alien number 0. I keep wanting to say Resident Evil. I'm a gamer guy. I can't help it. All right. Next recommendation is The Shadow number 1. Now, I just love what Dynamite Entertainment has been doing for the last several years. They've been digging back into the comic book history and bringing it to life in our current day and age. And, Alex Ross, one of the big minds behind this, is doing that here. So it's The Shadow number 1. He's like this ultimate sort of super spy guy, and they're even doing it period. It's actually set in 1938, so this sort of super deep espionage thriller kind of thing. And it's written by Garth Ennis, however you want to pronounce it, and art by Alex Ross. And this just looks to be phenomenal, as most of Dynamite's launches have been. All right, final recommendation is one that's near and dear to my heart. They are now coming out with X-Men Fatal Attractions hardcover. Now, I grew up on 90s comic books, which of course, by most accounts, were like the worst comic books in the history of comic books. But I don't care. I love them. And Fatal Attractions was like the uber crazy super crossover of the 1990s. I mean, it's where Colossus defected. It's where Magneto ripped the adamantium off of Wolverine's skeleton. And then Professor X mind wiped Magneto. Made him nothing. Made him a vegetable, basically. And then threw Asteroid M back out into space. I mean, it was this crazy crossover. It was only like 6 issues, but it crossed over all the X titles, 1 issue apiece. It was wild. And I've got all the issues. They had these cool holographic cards that were on the covers if you got the first runs. It was just phenomenal. And now they're collecting it all together for us in one hardcover. Now, it's $100, which I only say is ridiculous because this is comic books that came out in the 90s, where the print runs were so stinking high that even these books will maybe cost you $5 a piece off eBay, and there's 6 of them. So that part's kind of like, it's actually cheaper to go buy the originals at this point, but you know, whatever. It's still a great way to collect them all, or maybe I've just told you to go to eBay and go find all 6 issues. That's okay too. Just go read it. It's really cool. Or you'll hate it because it's the 90s. I don't care. I love it. All right. So we'll finish up. I'm going to talk, not a news piece. Indeed, I have a little rant. Now, just recently, they've come out with this Smallville Season 11 comic book series, okay? Sort of like Buffy did their Season 8, I think it was Season 9. It was basically saying, okay, the show stopped here. Let's make a comic book that continues this. But I read this #1 issue, and I mean, I was kind of befuddled as to why they would want to do this going into it, because to me, Smallville went downhill after Season 3. It jumped the shark when Lex Luthor left. But indeed, they are, starting up this comic book series, and, you don't have to worry about your contractual issues with different actors, because really that's the only reason that Lex left is Michael Rosenbaum wanted to go off and do other things. So, you don't have that with a comic book. But after reading this first issue, it's really weird, because I think the only people who would want to read it have watched the show. But the comic was nothing like the show. It didn't have, the sort of witty, fast-talking gals when it comes to, like, Lois and Chloe. One little moment, it kind of had that, and you got that feel. But it really just felt like a fresh Superman story, but not as good as our current Superman stories. And this #1 issue was like a big setup, and it's like, I watched 10 seasons of this show. I don't need a setup. Just keep going if that's what you're going to do. So it somehow managed to not feel like Smallville and not feel like a Superman comic all at the same time. And that's just bad. And I don't understand. Let it go. Smallville was supposed to be about the coming-of-age story of Clark Kent, and it just went too long. It lost Lex Luthor. I didn't really give 2 craps when it lost Lana, because she wasn't a very good actress, and I was much more impressed with getting Lois in there. That's who he's supposed to end up with. But then the whole, like, red-blue blur, I mean, how many times can you not call him Superman when he's Superman? And it's just, they try to stay back from it for so long until the last episode, and it's like, he's been Superman. I don't care if he didn't wear the costume or he didn't have the name. He'd been Superman at that point for several seasons. And it definitely lost that coming-of-age story. And the fact that anyone imagines that they want to continue that thing is just ridiculous. Now, maybe they'll turn it around and do something better with it, but at this point, steer clear. Just don't. All right, enough about comic books. We'll see you next time.